again with the crossover. We're with your host Ravi and Brian. This week, I think we're just gonna stick with one subject this week, and I think it's an interesting one. Kobe Bryant once again delivering us the news, giving the people something to talk about. So Ravi, man, first thing, Happy New Year to everybody, and
Happy New Year to all the viewers out there.
Exactly, we thank you for a strong 2014, and we expect to keep building bigger and better things in 2015. So let me just tee this up for you, Ravi, since this is your boy and this is the Lakers. So he never is one not to have something going on. So let's see. I just want to make sure I read this comment properly. Don't want to misquote the Mamba. So here we go. Before I have Mamba hate coming at me on Twitter. All right.
Hashtag Mamba Army.
yeah, it's hashtag Mamba Army. Delusional individuals. That's all I got to say. Okay. So, that is after the Lakers lost to the Memphis Grizzlies in a tight game. So someone asked about, I guess one of the reporters asked Bryant about what, when asked about the limited number of skilled big men in the NBA, I guess referring to how good Gasol and Randolph are, Bryant was very clear where he felt the blame should fall. This is, by the way, the LA Times, just in case you want to know the source. I'll post it below. Quote, AAU basketball, horrible, terrible AAU basketball. It's stupid, said Bryant. End quote. It doesn't teach our kids how to play the game at all. In America, it's a big problem for us. We're not teaching players how to play all around basketball. End quote. He said. That's why you have Paul Gasol and you have Marc Gasol, and the reason why 90% of the San Antonio Spurs roster are European players because they have more skills. End quote. Of course, we know that Bryant, in this case, spent a lot of his time in Europe and Italy, traveling across the world, so he always comes from a different worldview than a lot of the NBA players in the league. So it is a little interesting, that part. I can finish off the rest of it. I can get into the part. He says here, start the quote, quote, I was kind of fortunate because when I was growing up in Italy, the Red Arbocs, the tech switchers, were doing clinics and camps in Europe, he said. End quote. They were quote. They were teaching the club coaches. All the club coaches were just following their advice, and they were fundamentals, and they were teaching us kids all the stuff. Me, Manu Ginobili, all these guys that grew up around the same time were a product of that. And what if he had grown up in the U.S. instead? Quote. I probably wouldn't be able to drill with my left, shoot with my left, have good footwork. End quote. Said Bryant. Then he goes on to say, he says some ideas how to address the problem. Bryant isn't sure there's a way to actually fix it. He says, quote, teach players the game at an early age and stop treating them like cash cows for everybody to profit off of, end quote. Bryant said, you've got to teach them the game. You have to give them instruction, end quote. And Bryant thinks economics are in the way of a solution. Quote, that's a deep well because when you start cutting into people's pockets, people get really upset, end quote, he said. Because all they do is try to profit off of these poor kids. There's no quick answer, end quote. Wow, there's a lot there to digest, man. Let me get your thoughts, man. I'll come with mine afterwards, man. What do you think about Kobe's comments?
Yeah, a lot of stuff in there. Where to start? I think there's definitely some truth to what he's saying. Mm-hmm. But, if you really, reading that article too, some of what he's saying was that, you see a lot of big guys from the States, and they're being taught to, dribble the ball full court, but yet they lack a post-up game. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, if you look at, I think a lot of that is because of some of the European big men.
You don't say.
Exactly. If you go back, you had guys like Arvydas Sabonis. You got, guys like, who had touch from the outside. Right. Some of these guys. So I think it's not necessarily that they're being taught. They're adapting to the influx of European players that are coming in. Right. Another point too. A lot of the U.S. players, these guys are not, you have an increasing amount of players coming from high school, mm-hmm. Or that have came from high school. You have an increased amount of players that are, leaving college early. Mm-hmm. So, there's not a lot of guys like Tim Duncan. We call Tim Duncan the big fundamental. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that you're going to see guys come, staying the full 4 years, right? Learning the game inside out, playing within a certain system, right? And coming out, with a pretty polished game, right? But the thing is, if you look at these European players as well, these guys are, some of them don't necessarily go to college out there, but they're playing with professional teams
Right.
by the time they're 13, 14 years old.
Right.
And I think that's a huge advantage
Right.
that they have over there. So I mean, I see where Kobe's coming from, but it's a cause and effect kind of thing. That's where I'm kind of looking at it.
Okay. Well, okay. Here's my take on it, and it's very similar to some extent. Not all of it is the same take. It's a similar take to what I heard Bomani Jones mention on Twitter, which I find fascinating. But because I do think whenever you discuss these type of things,
Yeah.
it's very similar to like what you hear with up here in Canada. You hear with Don Cherry. It's very coded in this case. It's the Europeans versus the Americans. Sometimes it's coded type of thing. Is it Europeans really, or what are we getting at here when we discuss these comments and talking about about the economics and stuff about money involved in it? I get and I don't get me wrong. I think AAU is a bit of a cash cow. I think there's a lot of negativity around AAU. I get that, and I don't think a lot of people would disagree with that. Now, what players are being produced in this case here from is it really AAU or the American basketball system? Because you kind of conflate the two of them. As far as I see it in this case here, I think you made a great point. Like, you have this is where the American player can't win. First thing we rip on in this case, they don't have fundamentals back the basket. But then we laud the big man American player in this case here, where he says, "Look, he can take it from the outside. He's got range from 20 feet." No one's asking them the big European player to play back the basket. It's, if anything, they assume he can't play back the basket. You know, and it's nothing seen as a negative in this case here. Second thing, go ahead.
I totally agree. Like, there's a double standard there with the U.S. and the European players.
Right, exactly. Then we look at it now. It comes another thing you hear is that the Europeans in this case come to fundamentals and shooting and stuff like that. And the American players really are great shooters and stuff like that, or they don't have the fundamentals to do these things, like shoot right, left, whatever the case would be. Last time I checked, the best shooters in the league, last time I checked, are American. I don't know you. Maybe I'm missing something. I think I'm missing something, but that's the last time I checked. Okay.
I think it's one of those things where it's almost like perception is reality, right?
Right. It's a narrative that has been discussed for so long that I think in this case here, it's just something that just seems to be as is. When you really look at it, I don't think it's the case. Yeah, are there some player talents that are coming in more raw than before? Yes. Yeah. We've discussed that before as well, too. No one putting a gun to any GM's head to pick an 18-year-old.
Exactly.
And I do believe the right in this case. I'll put it on here. I said it from before. I'll be on the locker room. I'll say it on this show. I got no problem with any 18 or 17-year-olds that wants to come out and play any sport. That's up to them. It's up to the ownership of whoever wants to pick. It's to say, you know what? Price too high for us. We're backing off. You don't have to be that. So, I don't buy all this thing of making rules for 2 years and all this crap and stuff like that. So, my thing is, if you don't want all these players to come in raw, don't draft them at 17 or 18 years old. Okay? That's the second thing. Third point, when you hear Kobe talking about this, I'm like, wait a second. Which is kind of ironic. Once again, we talk about the double standards. Now, you have someone, in this case, Ricky Rubio. He said play amongst men and stuff like that. Comes in the league, all right? Still can't shoot after about 4 seasons. Okay? Still can't shoot. Yet no one talks about his skill set as far as not being able to shoot. Okay? Yeah. Kobe's not mentioning that. And I'm sure I can pick a lot of dudes in this league as well, too, that can't do a lot of things in this case here. And to take Bomani Jones' line, which was one of the best lines I heard about this all weekend, when guys were talking about, because everyone loves to bring the Spurs. Oh, look all the talent around the world, Spurs, how they play. As someone said in this case, as Bomani says, like, so if the Spurs are so European, how come they're building their franchise around the guys from Riverside? In other words, you're not building it around Patty Mills or whoever, not even Matt Barr, just always American, but Patty Mills or Baines or Thiago Splitter. They ain't building it around them. Or even Corey Joseph, you want to get literal about it. No, they're building it around who? Yeah, they're building it around Leonard. The dude from Riverside. That's what they're building it around. So don't give me, who's got pretty good fundamentals last time I checked. So don't give me this thing about, that's the other thing I find too. There was, I go crazy about this every year at the draft. They build up some great European, like hope in this case, like, as if he's going to be the next European Larry Bird. And that's fine. I'm not saying in this case a guy shouldn't get drafted. My point is like, let's, can we see the dude play? They just take it just by nature. Oh, he doesn't play any real competition, but he should be a top 3 pick. Why? Please explain to me why. But yet the same high schooler that's coming out, we're gonna want to drop him 10 spots down. Why?
Well, and I think Raptor fans are definitely well aware of that. We had,
are we ever?
we have, we were able to pawn off Bargnani to the Knicks.
Oh my god!
If I go back to, I think, the 2001-2002 season, you guys remember Rafael Arujo?
Oh jeez.
Alex Radojevic. I mean, we could go on and on
here.
The
Italian sensation there, man. What was it? The first year.
Who's that?
Well, Isaiah drafted the homeboy there, Espazio.
Oh, I forgot about him.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean in this case they're not good European players. Of course, they're good European players, but let's not make things more than they are really when it's all said and done. Because last time I checked, in this case here, and this is the thing when it comes to all the draft choices, there has not been one European player that's not named Dirk Nowitzki or is not related to a Gasol that's a franchise player. And I don't even think Gasol, in this case, either Gasol is a franchise player. Mm-hmm. So Dirk is the only one that's truly a franchise player. Hey, I love Parker, but the fact is that's Duncan's team. It's all said and done.
That is Duncan's team. Okay. I mean, I'm looking at a guy. I mean, Dirk is the only one where you can
that was
literally build a team around him as a focal point.
Exactly. Everybody else is a very good complementary player, and not saying they want to be Hall of Famers or not like that, but they're second bananas. They're not first bananas.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love the Gasol brothers. I mean, but we saw what Pau did in Memphis early in his career.
Right.
But we saw what he did when he was that second guy with Kobe.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, and as good as Mark is looking right now.
Right.
You know, it's he's not the focal point of that offense or on that team at all.
No. So let's fall back a little bit. And last night I checked, none of these teams are winning gold medals anywhere either. You know, so let's fall back. Let's look at the totality of the situation. Is there, when I see the nice young players coming up, if anything, I see less European young players than I did a decade ago and say, yeah, this guy could be a real big time player as an all-star. There's less of them in the all-star game than there were 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're confusing the perception is international players equals European players.
That's true too.
And that's not. I mean, you got a lot of guys from Brazil. You got a lot of guys from Africa. Argentina.
Right.
So,
but even if you roll them in there, when it's all said and done, I don't think their skill set's any better or any worse than the American skill set.
Yeah,
when the best young shooters of the game are playing on the same team. Last time I checked, they're not coming from Serbia. They're not coming from Argentina. From the good old U.S. of A. From the Splash Brothers. So, I mean, I'm looking around here. I'm like, really? The best young big men ironically come from the same university. And last time I checked, Kentucky in this case is in Brazil. Kentucky is the United States of America. So, I'm just sitting here shaking my head like, really? I don't know where Kobe's coming from. Maybe he's this old man grumpy syndrome. Maybe that's it. He took another L again. He's now all vexed in this case because.
Well, hey, you name me one retared player that doesn't complain about the game today.
That joke was on the radio the other day. I heard that joke.
These guys, whether it be Barkley, whether it be Shaq talking about big men these days,
worst. Because the dude just retired 5 years ago. Like, dude, you're past dudes are 40 years your senior. You're already in grumpy man territory. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's one of those things. It's not that. It's really a non-issue to make it an issue or to make it a topic of conversation. Right. It's not that deep. Like I said, it's one of those things where I think perception is becoming a reality, and that's not necessarily the case at all.
Hey, and I will say this, just a final point. I would think about 15 years ago, American basketball had some issues. There's no two ways about it. Not just from the top level internationally when they played because they can get the best players, but the style of play they were doing. The skill set was more like, hey, I got to dribble, and dunk and stuff like that. But I don't think that's the case now. I think going back to my point I mentioned with LeBron last week, I think overall American basketball players have evolved their game and has a more well-rounded game, the player today, than they did 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, how many Steve Francis dudes are really playing the league these days?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to kill Steve Francis. Talented dude could score, but pretty one-dimensional.
Very well, exactly.
Right, and there's a ton of dudes like him. Off the top, you can name in your sleep 10 dudes just off the top of your head at that time were just like Steve Francis.
Yeah.
Oops, we're losing Ravi here, so we have some technical difficulties. So we're gonna wrap this up anyhow, man. So anyhow, Kobe always giving us something to talk about, man. Well, tell us what your thoughts are about it. Maybe you think Kobe's correct about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, man.
And also, you know,
Yeah.
you guys comment on the links below. Let us know who your top 5 European guys are.
Yeah, man. Who's the dudes out there doing things, man? No doubt, man. We got love for everybody in the show, man. You know, European dudes, South American dudes, you know, or dudes from the motherland. You know, in
Hey
this case
man,
here.
we can go back to Drazen Petrovic, Sarunas
Yeah,
Marcelunas from Golden State back in the day.
Right, that's a boss man from Europe right
Exactly.
there. No, that was my boy guy, Petro. How you talking about? Anyways, but we'll leave it at that, man. Ravi, where can good folks find you, man?
You guys can find me at Mr. Ravi _Porvita.
And you can find me at Beyond Locker Room, short form RM, man. Once again, folks, Happy New Year. Catch you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace.